Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I am Ryan Bowling. Thank you all for joining me once again. Before I even begin this article here, I want to say that my prayers go out to the family members who have lost loved ones on this date, September 11th. We all know that this is 9/11. And we know that this is when the two planes flew into the World Trade Center, double World Trade Centers in New York City, causing over like 2,000, 3,000 deaths. So my heart and my prayer go out to those who have lost family members. We want to commemorate these individuals. This is a day to remember them for that tragic situation that has changed the trajectory in America forever, basically, okay? So my prayers go out to the family members who have lost loved ones during that horrific time. What I want to talk about in this particular video is a little bit more lighthearted than the things that I've talked about before, but it does deal with racial issues, okay? And what this article that I'm about to get into now is in reference to a black female filmmaker by the name of Ava. I cannot pronounce her last name. But her first name is Ava, I believe, who essentially said that black filmmakers are being discouraged from presenting their films in international film festivals because people in other countries are not interested in black stories. Now, the tone in which she takes by making that statement, I already felt at the beginning that there's a little bit more than what this article is presenting and what her statement entails. There's a little bit more of that. So we're going to get right into this article because I want to analyze this. Everything has been so racialized in our country, man, for so long. It's just ridiculous. I see the pattern all the time. And it's really quite disturbing to me, okay? Everything is race. Race this, race that, race this, race. Man, when are we going to ever get to the point where everybody can just be Americans, you know? But anyway, the article starts off with Oscar-nominated director Ava Duvernay. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully I'm not butchering her name. Is claiming that black filmmakers get discouraged from entering international film festivals because people outside the United States don't care about their stories. Now, based on this statement, this introduction in the article here, I can glean some points right here about this idea that people outside the United States don't care about their stories. Before I even go any further, I think maybe the reason could be, before I go any further into this, is because it's not their stories. I mean, I don't think they're interested in the plights of black people here in America and what they're struggling with and what they're dealing with. What people want is entertainment, whether they're in some other country or in America, they want to be entertained. But let's go further. I'm going to get deeper into that as I go on. Duvernay, director of the Martin Luther King Jr. biopic Selma, and various Netflix prestige projects, who walked away from lucrative first look deals with both Spotify and Warner Brothers, lamented her lot in life as a black filmmaker. So here we go with the oppressive black person again, right? The person that's black, that's being oppressed. I'm not saying that this is not the case. You know, I'm not saying that she's not being oppressed or being discriminated against because she's black. I'm not saying that. Okay, it's possible that that's true, but I think it's a little bit more than just her skin tone. Let's get into this. She lamented her lot in life as a black filmmaker, that she was repeatedly discouraged from applying to film festivals because she, quote, wouldn't get in. So let's go on. For black filmmakers, we're told that people who love films in other parts of the world don't care about our stories and don't care about our films, Duvernay said at the Venice Film Festival, according to a report by The Guardian. Now, let me speak on the comment she made there when she said for black filmmakers. Now, for black filmmakers, what does she mean exactly in terms of black filmmakers? Are she talking about black filmmakers that create stories that are specifically for black people or specifically deal with black subjects? Or is she talking about filmmakers who direct all kinds of films, but they just happen to be black? Because if you are a filmmaker that is a black person, okay, male or female, but you direct a movie that may have a lot of white characters and that may not have themes that deal with black issues, then you are just a filmmaker that happens to be black. So what does she mean by for black filmmakers? I'm going to make the assumption that she's talking about black filmmakers that specifically make films about black issues. And if you're making films as a black filmmaker, for specifically for black people, you're going to have a smaller audience. You're going to have a smaller audience because blacks in America only make up 13% of the population, whereas whites make up over 60%. 13%, 60%. 350 million at least people in America. Then you have 13% of blacks, 60% of whites. So the 13% would be 40 to 42 million, 60%, 180 million. So clearly out of the 180 million, you're going to clearly have a bigger audience of whites than you will blacks. That smaller audience of blacks is not going to be as great as the bigger, wider audience. So you're probably going to make less money if you are a black filmmaker who make movies that deal with only black thematic subjects. So this statement for black filmmakers, we're told that people who love films in other parts of the world don't care about our stories and don't care about our films, could be because of the themes that you're dealing with. If you're only dealing with themes that deal with racism, and I'm about to go further into that because the movie's about racism that she's trying to put out. Okay, if you're dealing with a film about racism against black people, let's be realistic, man. Come on, people in other countries are not interested necessarily in that. Now, they may have some relation to racism because in other countries, there are certain groups of people who do suffer racism. Racism is just not relevant to America. The concept of racism is universal. It's not just in America. You do have forms of racism in other countries. So on that aspect, you might have people in a specific area of a country or a particular group of people in a specific area of that country who are suffering some form of racism from people who don't like them, people in a higher ups or people in corporate business who don't like them and consider them inferior. So perhaps this movie that this black filmmaker is making, or the black filmmakers are making, may appeal to that particular market because they have situations that are similar to what this black film is trying to push, the ideal of racism. But if you're trying to make this a global phenomenon and you're trying to promote this film all over the world and you don't have a market for it, then the filmmakers and the film festival is going to be like, well, we really don't, we really don't want to push that. It's not so much because you're black and they want to hold black people down. It's economics. Most of this stuff is economics, not because you black and got black skin. If they know you can make money, money is always green. I don't know nowhere where I've seen money. You have brown money and white money. It's always been green, even though the paper is not real money. Gold is and silver is, but that's another story and I digress. Yeah, it's always been green. And if you black, white, Hispanic, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you can bring in the money, they're willing to promote you because they're trying to make money. Money is the great equalizer. It's the great equalizer. Even in the midst of real rampant racism, money is the great equalizer. What a lot of people don't know, before I go any further, what a lot of people may not know is that in the early history of America, post-Civil War, during the first portion of say the 1950s, and not only the 1950s, 1940s, and 30s, you had, in the Deep South, you had a myriad of businesses that were white owned, okay, but that would hire black people, black workers for their jobs. They weren't supposed to do that. They weren't supposed to do that because of the Jim Crow laws. I'm talking about the Deep South. Because of Jim Crow laws that was created by lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers, by the way, okay, they weren't supposed to do that. But these store owners who were white were trying to make money and they needed people to work. They needed people to come in there and do the work. A lot of white people during this time did not want to work in those places because they weren't paying the money they thought they should be paid. So a lot of the white owners would hire black people because they knew that these black people would do the work. So they were hiring more blacks than they were whites. Not necessarily because they liked black people. They may have been racist towards black people. They may have felt black people were inferior to them. Okay, they may have been supporters of the KKK, but when it came down to the equalizer, the number one equalizer, that green money, it was like, okay, come on in. Hey, come on in. The same principle. You think about it. During the time of what's the so-called Black Renaissance, let's switch it over to the black side, when blacks really were very classy, okay, particularly in the 30s and the 40s and so forth, in the 50s, where they owned businesses and were great musical artists. You had people, white people from other sections of the city that were supposed to be segregated would come over to their businesses and hear them sing and hear them play their instruments, and they would dance and all the rest. I mean, when it came to money, it was integration time, hidden integration time, but it was that money that was integrating everybody, because the money is only one color. See, money is the great equalizer. Now, coming back to this whole idea of, well, other parts where they don't care about our stories and don't care about our films, when she makes this statement about black filmmakers being told that people who love films in other parts of the world don't care about our stories and don't care about our films, it could be because they don't relate to you. They don't relate to these black stories, that black issues that you're talking about. They want to be entertained. But the people who basically control the film festival could also be looking at money. Why would they promote a film and try to market it in another country where they know they're not going to get any money back? It's always about that money. It's always about the dollar bill. So let's go on. Let's go even further. Let's go further. This is something we are often told. You cannot play international film festivals. No one will come, the director added. Now, she said that they said no one will come. But let's assume that this is some racial thing. We don't want you to promote your film because we don't like black people and we want to keep you down. I highly doubt that. That assumption, I think, is not founded on factual data. When she makes a statement that this is something that we are often told, you cannot play international film festivals, no one will come. Number one, she's quoting what she says these people are telling her. So we really don't know if this is exactly what they were saying in those words. She's basically quoting what these people who are in control of the international film festivals are telling her. So, but we don't know whether or not she's misquoting them or what, because this is her statement. This is something that we're often told, you cannot play international film festivals, no one will come. But is that the way they actually said it? I don't know. I wasn't there. But it could be, if they said it in the vein of what she's saying, it could be that it says, well, if you're making these kind of movies about racism and about this, that, and the other, about the horrible plight of racism of black people in America, this particular group over here in this particular country they're not going to want to see that. No one's going to come because they can't relate to that. They want to be entertained or whatever, but they're not going to be able to relate to that. That's not their story, so they're not going to want to go see it, okay? That could be the reason why no one will come, but let's go on. I'm going to get hated for this anyway, no matter how much sense I make. I'll get hated for this. This year, Duvernay became the first black woman to compete with a feature-length film at Venice. Now, she says, people will not come to the press conferences. People won't come to the press and industry screenings, Duvernay continued. They will not be interested in selling tickets. You might not even get into this festival. Don't apply. I can't tell you how many times I've been told, don't apply to Venice. You won't get in. It won't happen. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Clearly, this is what she was been told. This is what she's been told. But as I read further, my reasoning and argument is I don't think it's purely because she's black. This is the spirit that she's trying to communicate. This is the attitude that I think she's trying to say. They're holding us back because we're black. But I don't think that's the issue, that they're holding you back because you're black. They're holding you back because ain't no money in the movies that you're trying to promote across seas over in other countries. They're not going to get anything back. That's what I think part of the reason is. I'm not saying there aren't people in there that's not racist. I'm pretty sure there's some racist people in the film festival that has control that are racist. I'm pretty sure of that. You're going to have that all the time. Whether they're white, black, whatever, wherever you go, you're going to have that all the time. Okay, I'm pretty sure of that. But based on the information that I'm reading here and what she's saying, and based on what I'm about to read in a minute, I think it's more monetary than anything else. Okay. And not the way she said, well, they just don't, what the spirit by which she's trying to communicate is the spirit of they coming against me because I'm black. I don't think so. It's money. It says, and this year something happened that hadn't happened in 8 decades before. An African-American woman in competition, she added. So now that's a door open that I trust and hope the festival will keep open. He says, Duvernay's movie, now here's the part right here that's interesting, right? Just like I said, Duvernay's movie, Origin, premiered at the film festival on Wednesday. It reportedly focuses on racism in the United States and was adapted from Isabel Wilkerson's nonfiction book, Caste. Now, right up here, here we go, racism, which is nothing wrong with it. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. If a filmmaker feels the need to push those kind of movies and make those kind of movies, if they have fulfillment from doing it, nothing wrong with it. I respect that. I don't do it. I'm different, but I respect it. There's nothing wrong with that. But we got to also take in consideration, as she should take in consideration, that they're looking at the money. They're looking at what they're going to get back. If you want your movie to sell, you got to make sure it has to have universal themes, boo-boo. It just has to have universal themes. Even if you promoting the movie here in America, there has to be, to some extent, a universal theme. If you're just making a movie about racism in America, I mean, how many people do you think will want to go see it, actually? I've heard of stories and movies on Netflix and others that fail miserably, not because they're not well made, not because the cinematography is not good, not because the direction is not good, not because the acting is not good, but because the film deals with a subject that's not universal. It's not something everybody can relate to. And plus, it makes people feel extremely awkward and uncomfortable, whether they're white or black. It makes them feel extremely awkward and uncomfortable because most people, white and black, when it's on a surface level, want to get along. The only people that got an attitude with white people is the people that's been inundated, black people that have been inundated with all this racist this and racist that, and the black white man is what. Them the only ones that I've observed throughout my experience with them are the only ones that's walking around and got a problem with white people in general. Most whites and blacks don't have a person with a problem with white people. I see it all the time. Where I work at downtown, I always use an example. I see blacks and whites walking hand in hand. I see straight white, black and white couples. I see transgender, and I'm not mocking transgender black and white couples. I see transgenders, white and black, hanging out with each other, twerking. I kid you not. Their race don't seem to be a problem there. They see each other the same as everybody else. I see black couples and white couples hand in hand, walking the streets all the time. It's when we get into this racism stuff and everything is racist and it all coming from white people where the problem comes in. I think that that's a fabrication. I think it's a lie, and it's being provoked by politicians and movies and TV shows that promote that theme all the time, and it keeps that on people's minds all the time. If all you're watching is movies that talk about racism, if all you're doing is listening to politicians that talk about racism, if all you're doing is listening to music that talk about white man this and white man that, what do you think? How do you think you're going to be thinking? You're going to be thinking everything is racist. So it's the same principle here. You know, if she's talking about this movie focuses on racism in the United States, here we go. But let's go on. And there was a trailer for it, but I don't even want to watch the trailer. Duvernay, so now here's a part here that this article gets into that I find strikingly disturbing. Okay, that's what this article is saying. And I definitely have something to say about this. Duvernay supports abortion, which kills hundreds of thousands of black children every year. And that is absolutely correct. Abortion kills hundreds of thousands of black children every year. About 1/3 of the women seeking a recorded 600,000 plus abortions per year are black. That's in parentheses. It says, suppressing the voice of black Americans in the U.S. electoral system. In other words, abortion kills off all these children, right? Who could, if they were allowed to live, would contribute to the electoral system. In other words, you'd have more people, you'd have more black Americans if you didn't abort them. Okay, you'd have more black Americans that could contribute to the voting process. But if you're talking about you're supporting whatever reasons about supporting abortion is, you're talking about supporting abortion, which kills hundreds of thousands of black children every year. Then what are you contributing? What are you adding to the black population? You yicking and yakking about racism and this, that, and the other. You want to make movies about racism and all this kind of stuff, when in reality, you are supporting a concept that was created by a rapidly, intensely racist person. You want to know who that person was? And I've said this in a video before. Her name was Margaret Sanger. She was a eugenist and a racist in the 1930s. And she believed that certain races and certain subgroups in America were subhuman. They were inferior. Needless to say, she saw black people as inferior race. In fact, she wrote a book back in the 1930s that essentially stated that, and a quote in the book says that black people are like weeds. And you all know how weeds are. Weeds are very disturbing. Nobody likes weeds, okay? You know, and I ain't talking about reefer. I'm a weed. I ain't talking about weed, okay? I'm talking about weeds that choke plants and so forth. You cut them out. And so what she did, this is in history, what Margaret Sanger did was she created the concept of Planned Parenthood. She was a founder of Planned Parenthood. And she purposely, strategically placed most of the abortion clinics in minority neighborhoods, blacks and Hispanics. She did that on purpose because she believed, she was of the camp of eugenists who believed that you shouldn't allow certain races to be born, that in order to deal with their overpopulation, you had to eradicate their numbers. And she wrote a letter, okay, and I'm paraphrasing her words. She wrote a letter that was aimed towards black pastors to convince black pastors to convince their followers that by supporting abortion, they were doing something good. That the aim was to convince the people that this is not trying to annihilate the black race, even though it was trying to annihilate the black race. That's what she literally said in the letter. I'm paraphrasing what she said, but that's what she said in so many words. She created it. Now here you have this woman supporting a system that was designed to eradicate the black race. In fact, numbers even state, one specific statistical data stated that ever since the the 30s all the way to the present, because of this high number of abortions among blacks, because this is the highest number among all other ethnic groups. Among all the other ethnic groups in America, blacks have the highest rate of abortion. You tell people that, they look at you and still try to justify it. But out of all ethnic groups in the freaking country, abortion, black people, we have the highest rate of abortion. And because of that, that rate has diminished the black population by 25%, according to the statistical finding. This is in part of why the black race in America is not rising, it's not increasing, because we're killing up all the babies. We killing up all the babies with the complaint, well, she has sex, they're not fit to have a baby. You fit to lay with somebody, both male and female, both responsible. You fit to go ahead and do your boom, 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 but you don't want the responsibility, then keep your freaking legs closed. Don't let me go off here, man. Don't let me go off. I don't want to come off as being self-righteous because I'm nothing. Who I am by the grace of God. But I also try to use common sense. I know that women can get pregnant, and they do. And a guy can leave you. Now you're left with a baby that you don't want. And what's the other option? Abort the baby. No big deal. I could go on with this. But according to what this artist says, she supports that. And abortion kills up more babies, then kills up more black people than any other ethnic group in this country. That's a shame. That's a crying shame. Let's go on. As Breitbart Entertainment editor Jerome Hudson noted in his first book, 50 Things That They Don't Want You to Know, more black pregnancies ended in abortion than than live birth from 2012 to 2016, according to a New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene study. Let's read that again. As Breitbart Entertainment editor Jerome Hudson noted in his first book, 50 Things They Don't Want You to Know, more black pregnancies ended in abortion than live birth from 2012 to 2016, according to a New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene study. That is terrible. That is terrible. That is terrible. But you mention something like this and everybody think you're trying to dog and disrespect black people. You dogging and disrespecting black people, man. You hate your own race. How am I going to elevate my own race if we don't address the problem that's de-elevating us? How can I elevate black people when we can never grow because we're too busy killing each other, both in abortion and homicide rates? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? We have to, before we can get to the good, we got to fix the problem. We got to fix the problem. The problem is so overwhelming that all the so-called good that we want to yak and talk about is overshadowed by the bad. It's just like with Hitler. Everybody trying to say he was a great leader, he was a great this, he's trying to focus on the good. But you know what? It's hard to focus on any good about Hitler. You want to know why? Because the bad that he did was so horrible that it overshadowed his good. Same principle here. We can talk about the good, but the bad is so bad that it'll overshadow the good. Let's deal with this bad problem first, and then the good will come out naturally without anybody even having to promote it. I'm just saying. Let's read on, and I'm almost finished. Moreover, the center, and this article is almost over. Moreover, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, noted in 2014 that 78% of babies aborted in New York City in 2011 were either black or Hispanic. 70, and that's the end of that article. 78%. 78%. That is a shame, man. That is a crying shame. But it was all planned to begin with. By Margaret Sanger. It was all planned to begin with. And it's working. It's keeping our numbers down. Now, I find that interesting that the article, or the writer of the article, would mention this idea about this filmmaker, this black filmmaker, female black filmmaker, supporting abortion, because here she is yakking about racism in the film industry, and yet you yourself are supporting a ideology that is actually stems from a intensely racist individual. I'm wondering if she knew that. But let me end the video on this. I made this video on this in reference to black films and economics and so forth. I'm going to end the video on this. I have always felt and believed that Hollywood from the beginning to now was and is racist. I still believe they're racist. But I don't believe that they're racist against the green. And if they know that you as a black person going to bring in some money for them, even if they hate your guts, they'll promote you and push you because they know you're going to make them some money. Now, what I'm referring to here is during the early history of what was called blaxploitation films in the 1970s, which I used to watch all the time. My mom used to take us to see the movies all the time, Coffee and Sheba Baby and the Mac and all that, okay? Prior to those films coming out in the early to mid 1970s, the first actual, if you will, official independent blaxploitation film, if you want to call it that, was a film directed by a black filmmaker who died some years ago, called by the name of Melvin Van Peebles, I believe. And he was a black filmmaker, and he made a film called Sweet. I don't want to say the name, but because it has a cuss word in it. But I'm gonna give you a part of that name. It was called Sweetback's Bad A Song, something along that line. And that film, Melvin Van Peebles had to produce independently because Hollywood producers did not feel that black people went to the movies. They didn't believe in that. They didn't believe it because Hollywood film producers and filmmakers back in those days were racist against black people in the sense that they felt that their films were intellectually stimulating and that blacks did not have the intellect to go to the movies. because they looked at movies at the time as intellectual things. But in reality, they were going to the movies to see a lot of these films. It's just that a lot of the producers in Hollywood did not think so. They didn't do any market research in the black areas. When Melvin Van Peebles put his movie out and produced it himself and financed it himself, it made a lot of money. Made a lot of money. In fact, excuse me, the Black Panthers, those who wanted to be members of the Black Panthers, were required to watch the movie. It was required viewing by every member of the Black Panthers. Okay? Because it was a militant film. Okay? But the point is, it made a lot of money. This caught wind of the Hollywood producers and Hollywood studios. So they said, hey, let's get in on this. I think a couple of other movies made after that. They said, hey, let's get in on this trend that we see. And so they started producing these films for black people. And a lot of the directors, believe it or not, were white directors. Okay, but they started giving money to these films that dealt with black subjects. Okay, yeah, pimps and all this kind of stuff. They started pouring money into that because why? Not because they love black people, but because they could get the money. They saw money. Money is the great equalizer. That's my point I'm trying to communicate. Money is the great equalizer. But after a while, that money dried up and the blaxploitation, so-called blaxploitation era ended. The reason for that was because a lot of those black films was getting a lot of criticism. Those what called blaxploitation films were getting a lot of criticism from the black elite, such as the NAACP and others who were criticizing these films because these films, they believe, represented a negative aspect of black culture. Okay? And they were getting a lot of criticism. So white filmmakers, the Hollywood studios felt like, okay, well, you know what? Black people are watching our movies anyway, which they were. They've also found out, Hollywood also found out when they began to do market research in the black community, that a lot of black people were going to see their movies, like The Exorcist and The Omen. A significant number of people that were going to see their movies were black people. So they said, what are we doing all this, putting all this money in these black films for? Forget all that. And it dried up. They stopped financing it. The blaxploitation era died out. It didn't start back up into the 1990s, what was called hood movies, with Menace to Society and all the other Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, and all the others. That was when it started back up, okay? Because they saw another trend coming that they can make money. Because money is the great equalizer. And if you can make them money, they'll promote you. But if you can't make that money, and if the themes that you're dealing with are not going to make them any money, they're not going to give you anything. And that's what I want. I could go all day with this, but that's what I wanted to say about that. The black market is smaller than the white market. And it depends on what people's tastes are. Okay? A lot of those blaxploitation movies were promoted towards black people anyway. So they would strive to go see. You had a few white people that would go see this movie, but for the most part, it was geared towards the black market. But when they found out, the Hollywood studios found out that black people were going to see their movies and they were making money off of, a lot of their money was being made from black people. They said, what's the point? Why are we making these blaxploitation movies? In addition to the criticisms that they were receiving from the black elite, they're like, man, come on. It dried up. Because the bottom line is always money. Even if they don't like you as a black person, if you make them money, they're more than likely going to give you some money so you can make them some money. Okay, so her whole idea about that, I think she's been inundated with all this Marxist nonsense about white people hate you and this is you oppress and all this. No, I don't think that's the issue. But that's what I had to say about it. I could go on and on with this, but once again, we have an extended video here. But that's what I wanted to say about that. I don't think at all it is what she think it is. It may be some issues with that, but I think the bottom line is monetary. Okay, I think the bottom line is monetary, and it ended the video on this note, for sure. Her whole support here, she's yicking and yakking about racism in the film industry and all the rest, and she's being basically discriminated against in the film festivals for her movies. But yet you support a system that is designed to kill off the black population. Just saying. It's contradiction, woman. Contradiction. That's my words on it. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe to my channel. God bless you all. See you again.